I've had a sign over my typewriter for 25 years now, which reads, "Don't think." You must never think at the typewriter, you must feel. And then your intellect is always buried in that feeling anyway. You collect up a lot of data, you do a lot of thinking away from your typewriter, but at the typewriter you should be living. It should be a living experience. The worst thing you do when you think is lie. You can make up reasons that are not true for the things that you did. And what you're trying to do as a creative person is surprise yourself, find out who you really are, and try not to lie, try to tell the truth all the time. And the only way to do this is by being very active and very emotional, and get it out of yourself, and making lists of things that you hate and things that you love. And you write about these then, intensely. And when it's over, then you can think about it. Then you can look at it, well, it works or it doesn't work, something's missing here. And then if something is missing, you go back and re-emotionalize that, so it's all of a piece. The ability to sense and to feel and to know. And the intellect doesn't really help you very much there. You should get on with the business of living. All the poetry I've written, I couldn't possibly tell you how I did it. I don't know anything about the rhythms or the schemes or the inner rhymes or any of this sort of thing. It comes from 40 years of reading poetry and having heroes that I loved. Feeling, again. I love Shakespeare. I don't intellectualize about him. I love Gerard Manley Hopkins. I don't intellectualize about him. I love Dylan Thomas. I don't know what in the hell he's writing about half the time, but he sounds good. If there is no feeling, there cannot be great art. Just, if the feeling is missing, just forget it. You'll never make it as an artist.
What is different about the process? Do you lie on a couch and envision it, or are you still just sitting at the typewriter seeing it?
I'm still just sitting at the typewriter, except that I'm not doing any research. I'm making it all up out of my head. And I don't know exactly when I make it up, because while I'm typing, it's just coming out very easily, and I'm reading it with great interest and wondering what's going to happen next. I presume that my unconscious keeps at work under such conditions when I'm wasting time, like when I'm sleeping or eating or shaving or...
That something's going on in your unconscious?
I presume.
Do you get up early in the morning? Do you work an 8-hour day? How do you organize yourself to turn out such a great volume?
Well, I do wake up early in the morning. 6 a.m. is my rising hour. I work whenever I'm not doing anything else. That's what it amounts to. I don't have fixed hours. I don't drive myself. It's just when I'm not doing anything else, I'm writing, and I don't like to do anything else.
Why in the world do you want to be a writer? But if you really want to, then my advice is stop aspiring and just write your brains out. You learn more from writing a 100,000 word novel than you'll ever learn from any number of writing courses. You write 2 of them, you learn more. It's the best path, is just write and write and write. Of course, you're reading along the way to learn from bad writers why it doesn't work, and from good writers why it works. Second one is, whatever writing group you belong to, if you've been in it for more than a year, leave and don't ever show your work to those people again. Because when you're with the same group for too long, they start getting used to the way that you write. They start favoring you. They won't tell you the truth anymore because they don't even know the truth. They're not lying. They just can no longer see anything interesting or useful about your work that will help you get better. So 1 year. After that, they're just friends. They're not your writing group. Third thing, remember this. Faith, hope, and clarity. That's all that matters, is you write to help your readers believe in the story, care about the characters and what's happening to them, and you keep everything as clear as you can so that they are never confused about what's going on. If they're ever confused, you've done a bad job. What you have to remember is, story is what happens and why. And the why is not always external causes. There's many causes to everything. There are many results from everything. But the most important causation is motive. Motive, motive, motive. That's what Shakespeare taught us. Why people do the things they do, what they meant to do. It's what your mom and dad ask you when you do something really dumb as a kid. What were you thinking? What did you think the result would be? That's story.
What is your number one tip for an aspiring writer?
Finish things.
Yeah, get to work.
You know, that's got to be. I mean, write is only takes you so far. Finish things takes you most of the rest of the way. Write things people want to read. Write things you care about. Don't you know, I get puzzled and lost when people start asking me questions about what they should be writing for the market or whatever. There is no market. There's nobody in the whole world of marketing ever would have woken up one day and said, a series of unfortunate events is exactly what the world needs.
Yeah.
You know, nobody would have turned around and gone, your market niche is do a sort of reply to Kipling's The Jungle Book and set it in the graveyard. That's not, you know, things like that happen because somebody wants to tell a story and because you have an idea and because you think you can tell that story better than anybody else.
When you start writing, you're in a profession which involves making stuff up and inventing stuff. You're making up people, you're making up places, you're talking about things that manifestly aren't true. And if you're doing it right, you're using all of these fictions, all of these lies, all of these made up things to say true things. So, and true things that you can believe and true things that you can stand behind. So I never feel that it's as clear cut as fiction and fact. If it works, you are creating fiction to make truth.
There may be some aspiring writers in this group who want to do novels or short stories of your own. One of the things that you will probably hear from a lot of teachers and people who give advice to aspiring writers is write what you know. When I was a young writer, I hated hearing that because I didn't know anything, really. I was this kid from the projects in Bayonne, New Jersey. I had never gone anywhere, never had any money. I wanted to write fantasy and science fiction, but I'd certainly never seen a dragon. I'd never gone to another planet. I'd never done any of this stuff, so how could I write what I know? So I sort of rejected that and said, well, that's bullshit. I'm not going to follow that advice. But later, and when I actually became a writer, I began to understand the truth of that. It's not writing what you know in terms of the care and raising of dragons, or it's writing the emotional truth of your own life, and whatever furniture you may put into your story, whether it's a realistic story about, you know, what it's like to live in Barcelona in the year 2012 and, you know, the day-to-day struggles of life, or whether you're casting it in a historical context, what it was like to live in Spain in 1492 or whatever, when the Moors were being kicked out and the Jews were being kicked out and Columbus was discovering America, or whether it's a far distant planet or a fantasy world, the core of it is still what you know in terms of emotional truth. That's what's going to make the characters come alive. That's what's going to make it real. The big defining characteristics of my life in these periods was I had a number of women who broke my heart. And it seems very trivial compared to serving in the Vietnam War, but boy, it didn't feel trivial to me. And the questions of love and romance and sexuality and existential loneliness occupied my mind and obsessed me for years. And as a result, I produced a series of intensely romantic science fiction short stories and novels about guys who were getting their hearts broken among the stars, including Dying in Light, which I think is the ultimate example of it. So I too was writing what you know, even though I've never been to the planet Warlorn or seen a society like that of High Kavalan or any of the things that were in there. Those were the imaginative constructs. But the emotional heart of the book goes back to write what you know.